did not get the memo that the color is coral for today. Coral here. You need to move.
Did you plan that?
All right. Can you guys hear me okay? Yes. Okay, perfect. So, welcome. Do we have any first-time attendees here today? Oh, great, great. Nice to see you guys. Hope you enjoy it. So, I'm StephanieParson for the new attendees that don't know me. I'm a full-time real estate broker, and here today I have a couple of teammates with me, and helpers. So Kim is at the back there. Kim is calling you guys and sending out communication. And then Claire's here running the videos. And for those of you that don't know or haven't seen, we video each one and we put it up on our website. So it's on there, all the seminars that we've done. If you're welcome, they're there for your use. So please do that. So Sharon is not here. She's out working with a seller this morning on getting their villa on the market. But my team has over 50 years combining experience in real estate, and we specialize in working with seniors. We also provide some downsizing assistance for those needing extra help to make a move. And the Senior Empowerment Truth Series was born because we saw firsthand seniors needing helpful guidance and resources for later in life decisions. So that's how this has evolved. So how we run this, we will go with our panelist questions till about 11 or 11:15. After that, we will have open questions to our panelists. So we ask that you hold your questions until that time so we can get through the material that we plan to present to you today. You should have handouts there on the table for you to take some notes. And if anybody also doesn't have a notebook that would like one, check with Kim in the back there at the end. There's goldenrod color evaluations. Those, we do read all of them, so if you have some comments, feedback, need more information from one of our panelists, anything, please, we do value your information and ideas for future topics and that, so we will go through them. Without further ado, have any of you been hesitant in using current technology or talking to people on the phone? Yeah, because you feel you're exposing yourself to someone seeking to take advantage of you. You have to assume, I do anyway, I assume that they have not the best intentions when it's somebody that I don't know. So, have you ever been concerned for your family or friends because they're too trusting with family and friends and the finances, letting them handle things, and maybe you think that that's not the right person or they're being taken advantage of? Anybody experience that yet? Claire? No. We'll have to. It's you. All right. So, are your business and personal accounts secure against others accessing them? So today we have expert panelist Dave Stapanera with AARP, and we have Cynthia Hoffman with Best Life Advisors. So if you guys want to come up here and give us a little introduction on who you are, what you do, and why you're here today. Age before babies? No, you're going to have to turn and flip those on if you have them.
Hi, I'm Dave Stapanera. I'm the volunteer state president for AARP Missouri. I've been with AARP Missouri for about 3 years. In my role, I work with the paid staff to do things like strategic and tactical planning, but I also do things out in the community like this, give presentations on various topics, broadly most prominent. I retired from the Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis in 2020. I spent 35 years with the organization. The first 10 in Kansas City, which is where I grew up, and then the last 25 here, I was the Chief Operating Officer for the last 15 years. Thank you for coming, and look forward to a great discussion. She's saying to talk up. Okay, thank you. That's a great. Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm Cynthia, and I want to thank you for all the hard work you put into this. You guys have no idea how much work they put into making these things go smoothly. So my name is Cynthia Hoffman. I'm the owner of Best Life Advisors. We're a 3-person firm right now, and we are a unicorn in the St. Louis area. We are professional daily money managers, and that means that all the things that you do for yourself day to day, in your home, for your finances, we help people who are in some kind of crisis or some kind of transition to make those things go smoothly. So it's a very new industry. It's been around for about 20 years, but it is a growing niche because more and more people need that kind of help. My background is accounting. I was a CPA years ago, had some experience in commercial real estate, and done a number of things in my life to just kind of add to the abilities that I have now. So, thank you.
All right. So, daily money manager, like she said, it's pretty new. It's new to our area. There's very few people doing it, but
People doing it for a long time, they just didn't do it professionally with insurance and all the bells and whistles.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for explaining what a daily money manager is. All right, so let's get started. So Cynthia, what is elder financial exploitation?
Well, it's the 3rd most common form of abuse. And I believe behind us, the actual legal definition is there. It's the illegal use of a senior or a disabled person's assets for another person's gain or profit. So it's any situation where someone is accessing someone's money in a way that they don't choose to give it. It can be very subtle. It can be, family kinds of situations where someone is just asking grandma for a loan, and that person feels obligated to help a family member, and it can be very overt, and we're going to talk about a lot of those things.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for explaining that. So who's at risk?
So I always like to tell the story of when I was pregnant with twins, and I was in this meeting like this where there was a person talking about personal safety, and the person said to all of us, who in this room is the most vulnerable person in the room? And I was looking around, I was thinking, oh, she's a tiny little thing over there. And, she looks a little bit like she's got some problems walking, etc. And he turns around and points straight at me. I did not recognize that I was vulnerable at that point in my life. And so what happens is, as we get older, we don't realize, we remember how we were when we were 45, 50, whatever, younger than that, 18 now. We think we're invincible. And so women are probably the most at risk, not to say that men are not, but women tend to be the ones that survive, and they tend to be alone, sometimes living in a home by themselves. And many times their family may be as involved as they can be, but they're still there all day on their own, and things can happen, and sometimes that can cause a problem. So those are probably the most vulnerable. People who are in a situation where there's some kind of mental health or substance abuse problem, particularly alcohol, as well as those who have multiple health issues, or some kind of, maybe they've experienced some traumatic events, or they're just vulnerable to stress. Because usually when somebody's trying to scam you, it's a stressful situation.
Okay, so women are, I guess, just easier. I'm talking to them. Okay. So, Dave, let's talk about fraud a little bit. Is financial exploitation, and is it part of fraud? Is it the same as fraud?
So, loosely speaking, it's all fraud, but experts tend to break them into 2 big categories: financial exploitation and fraud. The difference is financial exploitation is typically someone someone around you, someone you are trusting, Whereas fraud, AARP, we call it stranger danger. You don't know, someone's trying to steal your money or your information, but you don't know them. So it's really just different buckets, but obviously it's all with the same intent. They're trying to either steal your information or your money, and of course they're stealing your information usually to get money. So colloquially, loosely speaking, you can think of it all as fraud.
Excuse me. So can you give us some examples about how big the fraud issue is?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the fraud bucket now, not the exploitation. And I think we have turn around a little bit. So I'd like to put this graph up because there's really not one number that we can point to in America that says, aha, fraud costs X billion dollars. Because fraud is a very general term, and as you're going to hear today, there's different types of fraud, and different organizations use different definitions to count how much fraud is going on. For example, the Federal Trade Commission takes reports from consumers of any fraudulent activity, and they do this every year, and then they report the number. What I show here is 8.8 billion in 2022. I actually just got the new number for 2023, and it's up to 10 billion. And these are just reports from consumers to the FTC of a fraudulent situation. Now, we also know that fraud is very underreported, just like financial exploitation. And so,
1 in 44 people reported.
So, the 10 billion again is what just reported. You could probably at least double, if not triple that.
Well, I don't know if you caught what Cynthia just quoted. 1 in 44?
1 in 44 cases of actual fraud abuse are reported. So most people don't report it. So, someone comes to you and borrows some money and is not going to pay it back. That's not reported as fraud because you gave it to them, but it's usually there's some kind of pressure there. There's some kind of implied threat.
What's more important than the actual raw number of 8.8 billion or 10 billion is the trend of the graph, right? So this is just the FTC numbers for the last 4 years. In 2019, it was 2.4 that was reported. So just in 4 years, it's gone up 4 times. Now, if you look at the FBI, they track online crime. They call it cyber crime, and they came up with a number of 10.3 billion in 2022. Javelin is a research firm that AARP contracts with, and we do an annual study with them to figure out ID fraud, identity theft fraud, and they came up with 43 billion in identity theft fraud. So the numbers are all over the place. The key thing you should remember is it's a very large number in America, tens of billions, okay? Whether it's 10 or 30, it's huge. It's growing significantly, and it's widespread. I would even venture to say that almost every aspect of your life, no matter what you're doing, somebody is in that space trying to defraud people. So I guess I am trying to scare you a little bit because I want you to take this very seriously as we talk about things you can do to protect yourself.
So there's a lot of it, and it's rapidly increasing.
Rapidly increasing and widespread.
And they keep coming up with new stuff.
And the fraudsters are very good at their job. I wish, when I worked at the Federal Reserve Bank, I wish I had all the fraudsters doing good things for me at the bank because they're very innovative and they work very hard.
And that's why you're seeing things in your bank. They're sending you more information about what to watch out for because they're trying to educate their people because they get stuck in the middle and many times trying to fix a problem.
So Cynthia, what about seniors reporting being financially exploited? Is there any numbers or reporting specifically on that aspect?
Well, we know that most people, and it's probably tends to be seniors, don't report it for a variety of reasons. We have issues with just the reporting process is complicated. So, so many people just don't bother with it. It may not be enough money for them to worry about unless they get into the big numbers. Yeah.
So what are some of the reasons why they don't report?
Well, they don't report. to use a very obvious word, they're ashamed. They're embarrassed. They think they should have known better. And so after the fact, they don't want to mess with it. I'll give you a really good example. I met this couple, and this lady had run the family firm. She had been the accounting and financial person. And something happened, they were retired, something happened in her life, and she got scammed, and she didn't want to tell her husband. She was ashamed. She was embarrassed that she had been taken advantage of. And I don't even know how much the money situation was, but it was enough that she was totally embarrassed. And her husband found her at a local gas station with one of these crypto machines, putting money into the crypto machine, thinking that was going to fix the problem. Well, it wasn't. But she was so embarrassed she didn't tell her own husband until he discovered it by accident. So that's how big shame can be in our lives. It's a universal thing. Brene Brown is a shame researcher. If anybody looks her up, that's her topic of interest in life. But many people also do not report it because they're afraid of retaliation. And this comes into play a lot with family members. So here's a family member, they rely on that family member. That family member is part of their circle of support as well as someone they love. And so when they ask them for money, they just give them the money. And that may not be to their benefit. And that's happened a lot, in my situation where, someone has a neighbor or someone, and they just have a connection to that person. And suddenly, I have one client, we're trying to stop her from paying her neighbor's rent. And the neighbor comes and asks for the rent, and, we're trying to do some things to prevent her from, we told her, tell her that you have to talk to us first. Give her an excuse or a way to get around that. But, many times it's someone who may actually live in the home with the person. A grandson needs a place to stay, and suddenly he needs money, and grandma's the most convenient person to ask, and that kind of thing. So we may be dependent on that perpetrator. And then things, cognitive decline. I think we was talking with the ladies here. My mother got to a point where she just didn't recognize all the things, and so her being on the internet wasn't a good thing. And so if you can't recognize there's a risk or there's something going on, and you have a cognitive issue, you have to remember that. The one thing I always tell people about finances and cognitive decline is that there have been studies where people give people tests about how financially savvy they are. And what happens is the older adults, they think because of their history and because they've always been competent in their lives, that they know a lot. The chart goes like this. And what happens when they take the actual test showing what they actually know is like this. So there's this big gap. And so that's something that happens as you age. Even if you don't have cognitive decline, the financial wherewithal is the first thing to kind of take a little bit of a dive.
I have not heard that before.
Yeah, thanks.
I want to interject on something you said on the shame and embarrassment part. AARP, last couple of years, through our broad presentations like this one and just general information, we're really trying to affect cultural change in this country about this shame and embarrassment, because it is getting in the way of people notifying someone, whether it's a family member, somebody close to them, or even the authorities, because we really don't have a good read on how much fraud there really is, because people are holding back. And some, not all, or maybe not even most, but in some cases, if you tell somebody soon, you might be able to recover some or all of the funds. So we really want to try to kind of change society thinking on this. We're victims. We're not, we should not be shameful about being a victim. And it can happen to anybody.
Yeah,
right?
we were talking about this. A tech person that I was talking about was talking about how prevalent this was, and he said, well, it's called phishing. Have you heard the word phishing? It's phishing for the little guy, but the guys in the C-suite, they call it whaling. So
spear phishing.
Yeah, even the president of a corporation can be taken in, or the people around him.
And have been.
Yes, exactly.
So this is not-
They go through things that you're comfortable with, like your country club or your college fraternity, and they know how to get to you. It's very subtle, very subtle. So I think that's a really good goal, because the shame is probably the biggest thing, is people are ashamed that they didn't recognize it. Yes.
So how is that connecting to catching any of these people? I mean, you're wanting to track how many people are being frauded or, so how's that connecting with catching any of those?
Yeah, so my comment on that would be, if we lived in a society, and I know we won't take questions at the end, but since you guys will go and do it. If we live in a society where people are quickly reporting, what has happened to them, I think I remember last year, actually, this seminar, the police officer that was with us said that there is a much greater chance of trying to catch the criminals or recover funds, the more quickly you report something versus if if it's weeks or months later, it's almost impossible. The other thing I would tell you though is, even if we can't catch the bad guys, it's very important that as a society we understand what's going on in this space in terms of how much is being lost, how it's happening, because then people in charge, whether it's the government or other organizations, we can start thinking of policies and practices and even new laws to help protect us. But if it's kind of invisible and under the covers, you're never going to get the attention of the policymakers.
Yeah. It's like slowing the drug trade down.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And knowledge is power, You guys being here today, by maybe hearing more about this, these are things that you're more aware of, and it may not be happening to you, but you may recognize it happening to someone else. At least your ears are perking up, or you spot the red flags and go, whoa, 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 wait a minute. I think just being more knowledgeable, and like you said, these fraudster people are getting more and more savvy all the time, so that's why we have to keep educating about it.
And there's 35 people in the room, I counted. 36, thank you. Studies show that you're going to tell 2 to 3 people. So, just in the hour we spend here, we're going to reach 100 people in the community. Now, obviously there's a couple million of us, but over time, as organizations keep having these kinds of sessions, we'll think about how that's going to grow and educate the populace. That's what we're trying to do.
And to continue your point, about 40% of exploitation is actually people you know. So whether that gets reported or not is iffy. But you're knowing that people your friends, your family, your neighbors, those are the people that are most likely to exploit you in many cases. It's a fairly substantial chunk of the pie.
Yeah. I know that in talking to an elder attorney about setting up our financial information and plans, that was something that the particular attorney that I talked to really said, who do you want to put in charge of this? And be thinking about, who has not been responsible in taking care of their own finances. That would not be a good choice. Somebody who's had problems with drugs or alcohol, a very bad choice. Or just a lot of turmoil in their lives, that they would be more likely to take advantage of a situation where they're put in charge of an estate. So I thought that was really good. I hope all attorneys are really kind of coaching that with their clients about making those good choices. And there's other options. It does not have to be a family member, and not all of us, have family members that we trust, or we don't have that person. So there are resources out there of some independent options to step in and assist with that. So, and then who typically are these perpetrators?
Well, typically in the past, and probably ongoing as well, it's usually a male, somewhere in their 30s to 50s, and usually a close family member. But more and more so, Stephanie, it's becoming women who are caregivers. They're in that sandwich generation. They're taking care of their kids. They're taking care of a loved one. And you think about the way the society is going. We're having fewer children, so they could be taking care of a lot more older adults. You could have a family where mom and dad got divorced, and so you have 2 people here and 2 people here, and then you're married, you have 2 more and 2 more. You know, everybody's living longer. You know, we're living longer and we're not living in as good a shape. So suddenly this caregiver is there, kind of trying to manage all this, and they suddenly start thinking, well, what am I getting out of this? And, you know, do I deserve some of this? And maybe I should be paid, or, you know, maybe mom should make me a loan because I need that car to take her to, you know, the grocery store. You know, it's a subtle thing, and it tends to snowball.
Yeah, I recently had a concerned client that I helped who's a senior, and day of closing, you know, we were talking about when the funds were going to be available to her and explaining that process, and she's like, oh great, because my daughter's already called me wanting to know about getting some money from me, and that made me really sad. You know, to hear
And
that.
it's okay if she has the money and if she, you know, is willingly doing it and has a plan.
Yeah.
It's different if you feel shoehorned into that situation and you don't know that you have enough. And people get to the point where they're like, do I have enough? That's always the big question as someone ages, am I gonna have enough?
So we talk a lot about seniors and being more vulnerable, but do younger people also deal with fraud issues, or?
So the short answer is yes. This is not an age-specific problem. I want to show this slide. AARP is full of statistics. I love showing all these. So AARP does frequent surveys on fraud, different aspects of fraud. And in a recent survey, we found that people aged 20 to 29 in our survey reported 43% of them had been defrauded of money, versus only 23% of ages 70 to 79. Now, I think that gap is probably not, in reality, not quite as large, because we also know that seniors report less. But even still, I think there is, what that's showing is this is not an age problem, okay? But on the right-hand side, you see that from a money perspective, it's a much bigger problem for older adults. Age 20 to 29 reported an average loss of $550, whereas 70 to 79, $1,000, and look at the 80 plus, $1,600. So, you know, obviously, not all, but many seniors, you know, they're going to have more money because over their lifetime than someone in their 20s. And so the fraudsters know this, and, you know, they're going after the people. It's like, why did you rob the bank? Well, that's because where the money is. Why did you go, you know, trying to get seniors? Well, that's because they have more of the money. So this is a problem in all of society, but it's particularly vulnerable. Seniors are particularly vulnerable because they have more money to lose, and many of us, you know, are on fixed incomes, and so when we lose money, it can be harder on us than people who are still working.
And my lovely son called me one day, he goes, Mom, somebody took money out of my bank account, and I still have my debit card with me. And I said, well, honey, that's what they do. and so literally, you know, a lot of younger people realize they have to be checking in on their bank accounts every day. And older people don't necessarily do that because they're a little bit afraid of technology. But he found it right away. The bank dealt with it, and he was probably in that $500 range. But they could have gotten a lot more. He had way too much money in that bank account. You know, you want to keep your bank accounts, we'll talk about this later, but you don't want to have a huge pile of money sitting in your bank accounts, particularly if you're not watching it every day.
Okay. Good thing I don't have huge amounts of money in my bank accounts.
Such a good problem to have.
Yeah. So, Cynthia, what are some examples of financial exploitation?
Well, actually, on that same note, here's a really good example. A couple had, they had a bank account, and, you know, everything was pretty much okay. They both ended up in the hospital and kind of back and forth, you know, over a period of time. And they didn't look at the bank account. Fortunately, they didn't have to look at the bank account. They knew everything was going to be covered. But they didn't look at the bank account for like 6 months. And when they did, they found someone had taken a check. And I think we could talk a little bit about check writing and how that's not necessarily as safe anymore. They had taken a check and they had washed the check. So they'd taken everything except the signature off the check, and they had rewritten it for $5,900.11. And that had just sailed right through the bank. Well, if they found that in the first month or so, preferably the first day, the bank would have gotten on that and taken care of it. But because 6 months had passed, there was nothing anybody could do, and they were out almost $6,000. So
Was that also a task to see if they could send other checks through, or was that the one and only?
that was the only one in this case, but they literally did not find it for 6 months, and unfortunately, it wasn't in the big numbers that they had there. But I've talked to trust company people, and I've talked to lawyers. I mean, people lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. In particular, you're going to talk later about romance scams, but they just know how to get their hooks in you and keep the money coming. So that's one example. I will tell you about one of the first calls I got. It's what's called a hotline call. And you asked me a little bit about what a hotline call is. And so this lady was coming out of the hospital, and she was going home alone. She had a daughter. She had given the daughter power of attorney, and she was concerned the daughter was getting access to her bank, which her daughter had. She had gotten an account set up. I guess mom had helped her do that. I'm not sure how she did that on her own. But she had gotten the bank account linked up so she could watch it. And the mother was concerned that she was taking money, and she just didn't know what was going in and out of the bank. And so the social worker at the hospital hotlined her. That means she placed a call to Missouri's Department of Services, Senior Services, and there was a person assigned to that who had to come out and talk with her and deal with her. And that person found out that I was working with her, and I kind of reported to her as to what we found. And in that case, the mother was concerned because she had heard the daughter was hospitalized, and she thought there was some alcohol issues involved. And there was just some, the relationship had gotten a little strained because of all this. And so, in the end, it all worked out. The daughter didn't have any nefarious, interests. And she came back and became her mom's POA. But, I came in and helped them figure out that everything was that was going to the bank account was her charges and was the things she wanted to go through, and gave her a little peace of mind. But that can happen quite, regularly when you deal with hospital situations where they're trying to make sure they're going to go home in a safe situation.
So we were talking about a hotline. You said there are certain people who are mandated because of their profession, that they're mandated to report that to
Yes.
who would those, do you know who those people are?
I think they're typically healthcare people, anyone who's working in those kinds of, I would imagine that maybe even bankers, I don't know. Do you know if they're mandated? I would imagine lawyers would have some responsibility.
Actually, in the banking industry, there are some, I can't remember all the rules, but there are some rules in the banking industry that if a banker suspects something is going on, then yes, they're legally they do have to report it in certain circumstances. But I can't remember the details.
I work with care managers, geriatric care managers, and I have had several care managers hotline a situation. I'm not a mandated reporter, and because of confidentiality, I can't do that. But in their situation, they hotline someone, and actually two situations. And in both situations, their client was not happy because that person they hotlined was indeed not somebody that should have been asking for money, but they were okay with that. So therein lies the rub. If you report something, that you tell them that it was okay with you, it feels like it's a family situation, and you say, well, I let them take it, even if somebody says it really wasn't a good thing for you to do. It's not exploitation. So, and that's what happens in many cases are things like that. And here's a really good example. I have a client who lives at home. Her husband's passed, and so she's one of the single widows who doesn't have a lot of in-home. No one's in the house with her regularly, and she has a handyman that they've known for a number of years. And after her husband died, he has been finding work to do. And she's financially very comfortable. He knows that. So he's looking for jobs all the time. And the first year, it was over, I think it was like $100,000 he spent maintaining the home. Now, some of that was construction. It's not like he didn't do work, but he was constantly like finding work to do that didn't necessarily need to be done.
Like that painter, who was that show? Murphy Brown?
Oh.
That painter that just kept
Was always there,
Yeah, always there and always billing. And in the second year, we came on board, and we started pointing this out a little bit and giving comparable, this is what it should have cost. This is probably, they're replacing HVAC units and, washer dryers, big things that potentially could have been fixed, but she's just relying on him as a trusted person. And her daughters, got our antennas up, we have our antennas up. He now knows that people are kind of watching, so those numbers are kind of taking a dive. But, this is another similar situation that happened with her being alone at home. She was part of the hail damage area out in St. Charles here. Everyone in her neighborhood has had their roofs replaced. Well, when that happened, someone came by and said, hey, I'm a roofer and we have hail damage in the area. Can we look at your roof and tell you if you have any hail damage? She said, sure. This nice lady, sure, go take a look. So someone got on your roof that, first of all, you don't know if they're insured, you don't know who they are. Just stopped by and knocked on the door. He went on the roof, came back and said, oh yes, you have hail damage, you need to file a claim. Came into her home, she let him into her home not knowing who this person was. They got on the phone, they filed a claim with her insurance company, and then he had her sign a piece of paper essentially saying that he could handle the roof for her. So a day later, I happened to give her a call and say, hey, by the way, how was your roof after the storm? And she goes, oh, my roof has to be replaced. And we're like, yeah, okay, how do you know that? So she tells us this whole story about the guy, and we found out he is a legitimate roofer, but he's also one of these people that you'll see on those signs, and he hasn't been in the roofing business that long. Well, we're gonna set her up with somebody that we know has been in the business, that has a lifetime guarantee on the roof. We're gonna make sure this is done properly, and he has insurance. He has all the pieces together. You know how that works with work that's being done in real estate deals. So the one thing I'll say to you is, in the old days, you let people come into your home. My mother-in-law used to do that. Oh, come in and see my house. It's a little small town. Nobody's gonna hurt her, but you don't know, and you're in the city. You don't know the person who's walking up to your door is a safe person to let in your home. So nobody needs to come in your home unless you know who they are. They don't need a phone, they don't need a bathroom, they can go find that someplace else. So just be aware. I tell people not even to answer their door if they don't know who's coming.
The great thing I like about your examples is I think it is a great feel for all of us of, financial exploitation is not just somebody stealing the money out of your bank account. It can be way more subtle than that, with your examples. But every bit as, at the end of the day, you're out that money that you probably or may not have needed to spend. So I think just the
and we're going to
examples
talk more about the moral
Yeah.
earth things in a second, but here's another example that we talked about a little bit. I have a client that was going through a real estate deal. They wanted to sell their home, and they had someone who had gotten involved when they moved to assisted living, helped them move and get placed there and the whole bit. It was a contractor, and they became close to this person, and they became friends, and they decided that they wanted her to be their healthcare power of attorney. Great. She's a nice lady, everything's good. But the moment they started talking about putting the house on the market, she says to me, I kind of think I'd like to buy their house. I'm like, well, that's a little bit of a conflict of interest here. There's probably a way to work it out, but that's a conflict. They should probably have their own lawyer. And then the second conversation I talked to her, she said, it's in my parish, it's in, where I want to be, and I really think I want to buy their house. And I again said, we need to put some things in place. Well, the third time she called, she goes, I really want to buy their house, but I think I want to rent it for a little while first. And I said, oh, that's not going to happen. They can't be put at risk. This is their property. Someone moves in. I don't know if you ever saw that movie about something Heights. They destroyed the property. You don't know what's going to happen. Somebody could have a fire, and then you have a real problem. So they need to just sell their house. But she was kind of skirting a line. She did end up buying the house, so it's not illegal, it's not really, but we put a bunch of things in place. We got an attorney, we talked to a bunch of realtors, made sure the price was the right price.
Appraisals,
We
fair value.
spent some time, and we actually talked with my client and said, we just want you to understand there's pressure going on here. We know you want to maintain this relationship. We don't want to destroy that relationship, but she's got to understand this is your savings. This is your life. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Had to take that emotion out of it.
So you were able to coach her along and say, we need to do this, we need to do that, to protect you and make sure that you're getting fair market dollar, fair market value, and everything's handled properly.
And that's what, when you work with someone, you want to make sure they have a code of ethics, and they have some standards of practice, and they're, part of an association where those things are important. Because some organizations do not have that, and some people don't work under a code.
Okay. All right. Anything else to add on that? So Dave, do tech people just call me because they know I have a computer and there's a virus going around?
Legitimate tech people or companies will not call you and say, hey, we think you have a virus, and let me remote into your computer so I can fix it for you. Fraudsters will try to do that, and they can be very good at it. And so if you ever get a phone call or an email that purports that, we're a tech person, we're here to help, hang up, delete the email. Now, if you contact a tech company, okay, well, now at least you initiated the action. Kind of a ancillary point on this is this also works where nobody calls you, but you're working on your computer, and all of a sudden you get what they call a pop-up screen that, you have a virus, and click this, and it may even look like it's like from an antivirus company. Click on this, we'll help you fix it. They're very realistic. I mean, you can get, particularly if you're kind of working fast, and you can click on it before you realize what you did. Do not do that. If you think you have a virus, hopefully on your computer you have your virus protection, run your scans. If you're still worried about it, take it to a reputable PC repair firm. Do not ever, click on any of these links. Because what they're trying to do is put called malware on your computer, and they're trying to get information off your computer that then they can use either set up credit cards in your name or get into your bank account. That's what they're trying to do. Get your social security number and sell it on the dark web. That's what they're trying to do. And one final point on this, what's really bad is these fraudsters are very sophisticated. If you click on a link, they can put something called a keylogger on your computer, and you have no idea. And in some cases, good antivirus programs will find it. But if it's brand new, they may not have updated their signatures yet. And so what it's doing is it's actually tracking every time you touch your keyboard and sending the file back to the fraudsters. So let's say you have a keylogger on your system, and you go in the next morning and log into your bank account. Well, now what the keylogger did is they just sent your online ID and password to the fraudster. So, the best thing you can do with technology is, keep it updated, keep the operating system updated, keep all your software updated, and most of the time you can just hit a flag saying yes, update automatically. You don't have to worry about it once you set that up.
Now, I have to ask about checks, because you said checks aren't safe anymore.
Well, from the Federal Reserve, I would tell you checks probably were never safe, to be honest with you. But, for a long time, we didn't have an alternative, so it was what it was. But there's always been what they call check washing, which, you describe it as, you write it for $35 and they wash it to be $3,500 and it goes through. And now, if you're monitoring your bank account, timely, you'll find it and the bank will give you back your money. But if you don't find it, check. And think about this. I always just tell people at the Fed, would you give a stranger a piece of paper that had your name, address, sometimes phone number, and the bank that you bank with, and your bank account number? Would you give that to a stranger? And of course, everybody in the audience always said, oh, I would never do that. And then I say, do you know that's exactly what you're doing when you give them a check? Because you are.
And it used to have social security numbers.
A long time ago, yes.
People are very worried about setting things up online, and I get that.
Yeah.
When we talk about this is a pen that I gave all my clients. When I start with my clients, it's like it's a Signo 207. This is not, you can't wash this out of a check. So it's like, well, if you're going to write a check, use this pen, and then don't take, it's really cool.
I didn't know that.
I'm going to tell you the update on that. But here's the pen you use, and take that check into the post office and put it in the mail there.
Yes.
Okay, so, these mailboxes, don't forget those. Just take it into the post office and mail it there. The update on that is that now everything's so sophisticated, all they have to do is take your check, scan it, remove the details that are in there, except for your thing, and send it through. I don't know how they they do it. They send it through the system and it just goes through.
You're much safer using a credit card to pay most of your, and not even a debit card, but a
Yeah,
credit
I tell
card.
I tell my clients that they have to have a debit card to lock their credit card and debit card unless they need it.
So you're saying credit cards are safer? than
You have
debit?
more legal protections using a credit card than you have using a debit card. Should it be that way? No, but these products in the banking system, they evolved independently, and actually credits came before debits, and the actually federal laws that are applied are different for credit cards versus debit cards. And so I tell people, you know, now the key to this is you know, you have to pay off your bill at the end of the month. Do not carry a balance. So in my other presentation on money management, you do not carry a balance. But you have way more protections on a credit card than a debit card.
And many people have their accounts like spread out all over the place. And so one of the things we'll talk about is consolidating accounts. But I tell people, have your money sitting like at a financial advisor's place. Like if you have an advisor, put all your real assets there. And then have a feeder account that you just feed on a monthly basis. And I'm going to be talking with younger people about this because it's protected there. Someone has to make a phone call and identify themselves to get money moved. Versus bank, where anybody can write a check and put it through your account, or get your information somewhere on the web, put it all together in a way they can do a debit transaction. Yeah.
So debit cards aren't?
Many banks have a lock now. You can actually go lock your debit card until you need to use it because it is not journalistic. Now the protections are starting to get better with banks with the debit cards. But they're still not as good as a credit card where you just call them up and say, please, you know, this was not my charge.
Yeah, I'm challenging this charge. It's not authorized.
With the banks, you have to wait for that money to get back in your account. So you may be having checks bounce and dealing with the bank, and it can be a bit of a mess. Somebody back there had a question.
You were talking about the pen when you write. Should you use a gel-type pen or a ballpoint pen when you're writing the check?
The Signo 207 is a gel pen, but it's specially formulated, and they put on their website that it cannot be erased. I don't know that all gel pens are that way, because that's why they promote it.
Okay. Yeah. So Dave, what do I do if someone calls and says, you know, it's my granddaughter, she needs help, she's in trouble with the police, she needs to send money right away. I think that's what do they call that, the grandma?
Yeah, so this is basically again, in quotes, a grandparent scam, although it can, it's not just targeted at grandparents, but primarily targeted to grandparents, where the fraudsters, they're very good at knowing human psychology, and they're using it against you. For those of you that are grandparents in the room, I'm one, you know, we would do anything to protect our grandchildren, okay? And so what the fraudsters are trying to do is get you into a heightened emotional state, which studies have shown in the brain actually kind of suppresses the part of your brain that we use for analytical and logical thinking. And so this other part of your brain kind of takes over, and they're trying to get you in that state to then send them money. It's a scam. Almost 99.9% of the time, it's a scam. What you need to do, hang up. You can say things like, I'm going to verify this. What is your contact information? They will hang up. You mentioned you had a client that, they started asking some questions that, the person, your client knew only the grandchild would know. They didn't know. Always, no matter which of those approaches you take, always call the other family member, see if they're okay, call their parents, call a friend, whatever. You have to independently verify before you do anything. This happened to my 9-year-old father-in-law. He was convinced, absolutely convinced. He did call me and my wife. We could not talk him down. So we actually asked the next door neighbor, who happened to be a police officer, who of course he respected, and the police officer went over there and said, no, Bill, this is a scam. But it got him so hyped up, he was just not able to think clearly.
And I don't know if it's still out. It's called Thelma, and I went to see it 2-3 weeks ago with a friend. It's a really sweet little lighthearted comedy, but it's a very serious. It's all about the subject. The woman is in a grandparent scheme, and she gets money, takes substantial money she gives money through the mail to these people, and then she goes off on this little adventure, which I do not advise, to try to find her scammers. It's funny, it's sweet, but it is bittersweet in that sense that, you know, someone, they're trying to educate people at the same time, entertain.
So let's.
Hold your question to the end on that.
Yeah, you don't mind. So, Dave, I know somebody who's been a victim of a romance scam, and I've heard this many times from, you know, people about their older parents getting, that they really feel have been reeled into a romance scam. So what does that look like? I mean, how's the best way to handle that?
So I've seen, actually just recently, I started seeing this renamed from romance to relationship scam, because I think the whole concept of romance scam actually further created embarrassment and shame, so people were reporting it, and just, you know, for whatever reason, a relationship scam seemed a little, yeah. So anyway, how this happens is, it's typically older adults. You know, maybe you're lonely, you know, maybe you're on a dating app site, which is perfectly legitimate, or you may be using social media, Facebook, but somehow you get contacted by someone who starts to profess, you know, kind of interest in you, and, you know, of course, you'll shower you with praise and all this, and they can be very convincing. Okay, they'll let this happen over weeks or even months, but there always at some point comes the ask. Once the fraudster thinks they've got you kind of, real gin, if you will. And what they're going to ask for is, hey, you know, something happened in their life, it's kind of a big deal, could you send me, you know, $300? You know, I promise to pay you back. If you do, you know, a month later some other problem will come up, hey, can you send me $1,000 this time? And before you know it, you know, the person may be out several $1,000s.
Oh, more.
Or more, yeah,
A lot
yeah.
more, because they get very emotionally enmeshed in these people's lives. I have a nephew who's young, and one of the things I tell people is I have three leaves on my logo for a reason. The most important things for you are your money, your health, and your relationships. And as we get older, our relationships tend to dwindle, and so, you know, meeting people in a setting like this is just really important and helpful to make some friends and do that. But he's kind of isolated. He's got a business and he's working in a shop and he doesn't do much, but he games. And so this young woman is connected with him, and we're all kind of like, morning, morning.
So it's not just older adults,
yeah.
it can be, you know, any age really. Some key signs of this, and part of this is, as we all get older, we kind of have, like, you know, we get this odd behavior radar about us, and you kind of start feeling that way, where it's like, this is a little bit over the top, this person is really, you know, professing, you know, interest and love for me. They always want to take you off of the site they met you on, so that they get away from the maybe a more formal ability to track, and so they'll get you on maybe an encrypted platform like WhatsApp, text messaging or something, but they always end up asking you for money, and, you know, you just, you know, using online tools there's nothing wrong with it at any age. You just got to be very careful. Oh, they never can meet you in person. That's another red flag. They never can meet you in person. It's always an online kind of relationship. And, you know, I used to always kind of chuckle at this when I talked about it, but then as I start reading all the statistics, I mean, this happens. It happens a lot.
My dad's Philly's in Iraq. I need to go back, and I need money to go see him before he dies. It's that kind of thing, you know. And you care about the person, and you're like, oh, that's not that much money, until you don't get it back, or until they start asking for more. Yeah, it's very safe.
So what about AI? I know that we didn't talk about that, and it seems like with that, I mean, it even amps up the game.
Yes, I should have talked about this in the grandparents scam. Thank you for reminding me. So with artificial intelligence now becoming widespread, it is very easy for scammers to actually take clips off the internet of your grandson's voice or granddaughter's voice. And all they need is a few clips, like on Facebook or, you know, all the other social media, and they can use that to then create a message that calls you and makes it sound like it's your grandchild.
They can be typing as they're talking to you,
Yeah.
and the voice is coming out.
So unfortunately, we're entering an era where you literally can't even rely on, oh, I know that's my grandson's voice, I know it. No, you don't know it. You don't know it. So, you know, you can't believe what you see and hear, because all this technology can, you know, you've heard of deep fakes on the internet and all that. You can't believe pictures, you can't believe video, and you can't believe voice. So you have to have other control mechanisms to figure out like what is really real.
You have to have those relationships and those connections and just ask. But I will say, AI is going to be everywhere. I use it daily in my work, just for information. It's better than searching in some cases on the internet. You feel like you're getting documented, real stuff. But it's going to be a huge part of our lives in the future. We're just going to have to get used to it.
So what about an imposter scam? What is that involved?
So an imposter scam, that's actually one of the most common scams happening. It's related to something, we've talked about phishing scam, it's kind of related to that, but what fraudsters are doing is they're actually putting a company name or a government name behind it. For example, someone emails you or texts you or in some cases calls you saying they're from the IRS or Medicare or Social Security, something that all of us our age, is going to get our attention, right? FBI, it must be important. Or they're acting like they're from a very well-known company that a lot of us use. This is Amazon, okay? This is FedEx, UPS. This is AT&T, a common utility. So what they're trying to get you to believe is this is a legitimate message. And then, of course, they're asking for something. Again, usually it's personal information that they want from you to then use, you know, to do bad things with. And so the key signal here is you're getting an unsolicited message. You know, it just kind of comes out of the blue. And at least for me, it's almost always text now. It's occasionally email, but for me, I probably get 10, 20 texts a week that are basically imposter scams. And they want you to click on the link that's in the text, okay? Don't click on a link that's in a text, because it can create bad things happening.
And I would say, don't click the link unless it's your like financial advisor and he says, I'm going to send you a text. You know?
Yeah, so you know what's coming, right?
Yeah, it's always a surprise. It's always like, I'm not expecting this, so I should, you know, just delete. Junk, hit the junk button.
You know, sometimes it's hard to figure out what are they getting out of this. I mean, I have people reach out to me all the time that say, hey, can you help me with real estate? I only communicate via WhatsApp.
For those of you that don't know the piece of WhatsApp is, it's just like text messaging. Well, it is text messaging, but it's all encrypted and private. And so it's very hard to trace and track and all that kind of stuff. So it's a preferred, it's a good app. I mean, I think it's Meta, it's Facebook. So it's legitimate. It just can be, it's easier for people doing bad things to use and cover themselves.
Yeah, so it's there to their benefit.
Yeah,
They're ready to get on there so that they can be.
And most legitimate business people, you can look them up on LinkedIn, you know, I mean, they're out there, they have legitimate websites.
I'm
and
like, really? You don't have a phone number or an email that?
Right.
Yeah, no, you're not legit, so I just don't respond to them, so. Okay, so, what financial exploitation in seniors?
Before you move on, can you do an example of someone taking your taxes, returns?
Oh, go ahead.
Actually, I do taxes as part of AARP's free tax service. And how this works normally is someone has gotten a hold of your social security number, okay? So what they're doing, and then they're filing a tax return very early in the tax cycle. Usually the earliest you can file a tax return that's processed is February 1st. So they're getting in real quick, and they're trying to beat you to, you know, maybe you're going to file in March. Well, they're using your social security number, and then they're filing a return, and they're getting money. And then when you try to file a return, the IRS is going to say, well, no, you've already filed your return.
Is there any way of fixing it?
You can, yeah, the IRS has helplines that will help you deal with the problem. and then for that year, and then for the future, what they'll do is they'll give you something called an identity protection pin. It's just a regular code, and then for the next many years, when you file your taxes, they will send you in January a letter that says, here's your PIN for this year only. And you have to put that on the tax return. If you don't put that on the tax return, it will reject at IRS. And that happens to us when we do free tax returns. So this is pretty common, and the IRS is pretty well equipped to deal with it. Most of the time for you, it's just a hassle to deal with it. I haven't actually heard of any stories about people, you may know this, are they able to get their money back when this happens?
He never got his money back.
How was that?
He never got his money back.
Okay, yeah.
It's been 3 years.
Yeah, I've not experienced that personally, but I will also add that if you, most people here probably are in the Social Security years, I would highly recommend that you get a Social Security account officially established if you have not done that yet.
Online?
An online account.
Go to myssa.gov.
Yeah.
myssa.gov.
And use a significant password. Don't just use something, don't use password. Use a 12 to 15 digit password that's complicated. It can be a series of unrelated words, but keep that password, because if you ever have to deal with Social Security, say for example, your spouse dies and you have to open a new bank account, you're going to have your Social Security information. You probably have to move that Social Security payment, which means you have to make a trip physically to the Social Security office. You can do that all online if you have an online account. But I have a client who was older, and she didn't really want to go to the Social Security office. She doesn't get around well. Nobody really wants to be responsible for taking her. And we tried everything. She now has a Social Security account established, but we had to go there to make it happen.
The federal government, believe it or not, is actually doing a good thing right now, and they're actually consolidating all of their log-on ID and access codes. So they're actually creating something called login.gov, and once you set up that account, you can get to Social Security, you can get to IRS. Military, yeah. So they're trying to make it easier for you to deal with the government electronically, and it'll take a lot less time to deal with some of these problems that crop up if you have these online accounts. But the key is you got to keep a strong password, keep it private.
And if you already have a Social Security account, right now they're actually asking you to go in and update to login.gov. And someone was telling me it took like 45 minutes. I haven't had that experience.
I just did it in 5 minutes, so it wasn't
Yeah,
a
I
big
did it
deal for
with a
me.
client of mine. It didn't take long at all. But if you're not used to doing that, it might take a little longer. But it's something that everybody should be thinking about doing right now.
So what is that address again?
So the Social Security, when you log into your Social Security account, it will ask you to change your login to login.gov. And so you'll have to set up a login.gov account, but it makes it pretty
It
simple.
was very simple for me, yeah.
Yeah.
So how about, there's commonalities or red flags that are pretty apparent in all the different scams. So Dave, can you elaborate on what those are?
Okay, so, and we've talked about many of them, but unsolicited message, okay, phone, email, text. We all need to get into the mindset of any unsolicited message may be bad, okay? It typically is asking you to do something. It typically has a link in there for you to click on, or a phone number to call. Sometime, and this used to be true 5 or 10 years ago, it's actually getting a lot better now, or a lot better for the fraudsters. It used to be, it was like, it'd be poor grammar, poor English. You would kind of tell it was coming from overseas, and it was like a dead giveaway. Well, anymore, they're getting a lot better, but you still want to look at, does this look like, a reasonable message? They're always trying to convince you that there's a real problem here that you really have to jump on now, and kind of dire consequences in some cases. But there's a problem with your Amazon delivery. There's this kind of problem with your utility. Like things that make us, again, our human mind starts going, oh, geez, I gotta go get that fixed. That's what they're trying to get you into. Okay, so those are some of the common, and then they're always going to ask you at the end of the day, either for personal information or money. And if they're asking for money, it's going to be in some kind of odd way of paying. Gift cards, prepaid debit cards, a bank wire transfer, or cryptocurrency. Because now there, as you mentioned, there are cryptocurrency ATM machines at many, little drugstores and mobile, gas places and all this. And so even if you know nothing about cryptocurrency, it'll kind of walk you through how to make a payment in dollars to cryptocurrency. So, most of these kinds of payments aren't common, right? And the reason the fraudsters are asking you to do this is because they're very hard to trace, if not impossible to trace, and often they're non-refundable. You can't get your money back. So these are some of the common red flags that go across all of these different kinds of scams, because it's almost impossible for any one person to know about all the scams going on. On our ARP website, we have a Fraud Watch Network part of the website. We literally track 87 different scams going on. And for each, if you actually go to the website, you click on it, it'll give you like a short one-page summary of what it is, how it works, what you can do to protect yourself. I have a tendency to kind of go in there and just refresh my memory all the time. Most people wouldn't do that. But there are some common, key point is there are some common things that are across many of those 87 that you want to be looking for.
So unsolicited, vague language.
Vague language.
They want you to do something immediately.
Do something now, you got a problem. Pay me in this weird way. Those are very common.
And if you look at the email that it came from, it's usually a gobbledygook email.
Yes.
Or it can be an email like at ispectrum.net, where it looks like it's legit, but if you look at that I, it's usually not like, I think espectrum.net is usually okay, but it'll be a website at the end of the email that...
Or at Gmail.
Yeah,
Or at Gmail.
At Gmail, right,
So it's like,
exactly.
why is this company using at Gmail? So if you don't know how to do that, you can just put your cursor over the from, and it'll pop up with the actual address. And we used to teach that at the Federal Reserve is, because we got spammed all the time too. And so we used to teach people, the first thing you want to do on an email is go check that, make sure it looks like it's coming. Now, that isn't foolproof, but at least it gives you an indication.
Yeah. So Cynthia, what would the best plan to be to avoid financial exploitation for your personal finances and other assets?
We put those down in the information that you have, and also on the slide. I talked a little bit briefly about the first one, and that is where in the old days you would spread your basket out. You don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. That's the way I was raised. That's the way a lot of us are raised. But in today's economy, the technology has changed so much, and the potential for scams and fraud has changed so much that you're really better kind of keeping all your eggs in one basket. And as I said, the way I like to do that is I like to have a financial advisor, or if you have a Fidelity account, it can be self-directed, but have it somewhere where you have to actually make a phone call to get to that money. Like Fidelity Schwab, you can have a self-directed account, or you can have an advisor who uses those places. But your advisors are all going to use a larger company to hold your assets. And then if you need assets, you'll set up a regular transfer to what I call a feeder account at a local bank, so you can get cash and you can write checks if you want to. I do all my checking through Fidelity, so you don't have to do it with the local bank. But if you want to get cash, you usually have to have a little local bank. And so if you want money, that financial advisor or you automatically direct the money from your account, either online or with a phone call. But someone can't get to that. Like, they can't just use your debit card number, or they can't just do an ACH through your bank. They get all that information. It's not going to go through with a financial advisor's or a Fidelity kind of place. So that's the first thing, is just to think in terms of consolidating. And you do that also for your family. Like, as you get to later in life, you want to have your end-of-life plans in place. And so having everything simplified and consolidated is always a good plan. The second thing is to review your bank statements and your credit cards regularly. If you get your statement at the end of the month for your credit cards, make sure you take a quick look at it. Many people will do that online on a regular basis as the month goes by, just so they're keeping track of their balance, want to know what it's going to be at the end of the month. The credit cards are easier in terms of if you get a fraudulent charge, you see it that month, you call your credit card company, say, I didn't do this, and they will cancel your credit card usually and issue you a new one, because that means somebody besides you has access to your card. So that's a little bit of a hassle, especially if you use that for your day-to-day spend. But I also tell people to have at least 2 credit cards. I prefer at most 2 credit cards, but I tell them to have one they keep at home, that they don't take out unless they have to, because, and that's the one you put all your regular payments on, you know, all your HCH, all your, you know, utilities, et cetera, anything you want to make sure gets paid goes to the credit card. And then the other one's the one they take out for their daily spend. So if that gets lost or stolen and it's replaced, you don't have to go through the hassle of fixing all of those.
And it is a hassle, I've had to do it.
Yeah, it is a hassle.
There's one thing on bank accounts real quick, for those of you that do use online banking, you can set them up to where it'll send you an alert.
Yep.
If anything hits your account above a certain dollar amount, I would encourage you to do that.
So ACH, that's a direct draw out of your account. Are those no-nos or are they safe?
I used to run ACH in this area, so I can tell you for the fact it's a very safe payment mechanism. Very, very little fraud once it gets into the mechanism. Obviously, fraud can be on the front end, but the actual ACH itself is a very safe payment mechanism.
And you usually have to sign a piece of paper. Like, I have people who have care managers or they have in-home care, and those people will give you a piece of paper saying, we want to automatically take this out of your account. You're going to pay them anyway. They're trying to make payroll, so they like to get their money as quickly as they can. So you're signing a piece of paper saying it's okay to go to my bank and pull this money.
And there are protections. I think you have up to 60 days to challenge any debit to your account. So there are some really good protections for ACH.
So the third thing on the list, we've talked with one of the ladies back there, I can't remember exactly who, put your, there are credit reporting agencies, there are 3 of them, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau recommends, and I recommend, that you go there, and it's again, setting up an account and dealing with passwords. But if you are at a certain point in your life, you probably really don't need to take out more credit. Or if you do, what you can do is freeze your credit reports, which means no one can open credit in your name without you knowing that. So you freeze your credit reports. If you need to buy a car and you want to get a loan or a house or whatever, you then ask them, which credit reporting agency do you use? And you work out a deal where you go unlock it for a couple of days. Sometimes it'll automatically lock itself back up. But you just open it up for a few days, let them get their credit report pulled, and then lock it back up.
I see that a lot when people are getting loans.
Yeah.
They just say, oh gosh, I gotta go in and unlock.
And ARP strongly recommends that you do this. Again, for all of us at our age, we legitimate accessing of credit is less frequent at our age. So we strongly recommend it.
I was at Penny's and I wanted to get the extra discount.
Yeah.
And I applied, she goes, I'm sorry, they can't access your card. I said, oh, it's all locked. I said, just forget it.
But it does take literally, as long as you keep your passwords, it takes like 5 minutes to unfreeze it. This is not a big deal online.
Yeah, exactly. But there are 3 of them, so check that out. I think there's something on the back sheet also with the number of the addresses and things for that. So check your credit reports, and you can also check your credit reports through that account. And you can do that really for free. Make sure there's nothing on there that doesn't belong to you. And while I'm talking about that, I have not experienced this, and you may have some experience. I'm sorry to throw something new in the mix here. But you hear people saying that somebody's stolen their house in the mortgage. And now you can typically go to your county and you can register with your county where your home is, and they will let you know if anybody does anything to your mortgage or to your filing. I had this happen recently. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but I had somebody, the message came through that there's something on your account, and I called the county and I said, what's the deal? And they told me what it was, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's all right. It wasn't like they were stealing my mortgage, but apparently there are people who go buy houses and are able to get the mortgage
Well,
off.
they're stealing the deed, right?
The deed, yeah.
And we're having a lot of vacant lands
Yeah.
so, but anyway, so we're getting really close on time. Any other best plans to avoid, Cynthia?
I think these are pretty self-explanatory. Put your bills on auto pay. I know people hate that, but that's really, it is the safest way to do it. And do not sign blank checks. Ever don't co-sign or guarantee loans. I know people that have done that. And their family's like, oh, now what? And don't put someone on a joint bank account because you're exposed there. And legally, if they're on the bank account, that's their money too. Or if they get sued or divorced, that can be part of a divorce settlement. So just be very careful about having a joint account when it's not your money.
Other than your spouse, is that right?
Right.
Okay.
So, hopefully it doesn't. Anyway, so all the other things I think are pretty self-explanatory on there. You can pretty much apply those in your life.
All right. Okay, so I know there was, Tina, did you have another question?
How do you, well, I was asking Kim, how do you, put that on your house so nobody, to let them know to contact you?
Contact your county recording office, I think. is who you contact.
County.
The recorder at the county.
County
Order
recorder.
deeds.
And there's a process for the recorder of deeds.
Yeah, I live in St. Louis County. I think probably most of you live in St. Charles County. But St. Louis County makes it really easy. On the website for St. Louis County, recorder of deeds, you can put it in there. And then anytime anything happens, anyone tries to touch your deed, it's going to send you a notice.
And if you haven't applied for your senior tax, what is it, waiver, not waiver, it's holding your taxes.
Tax freeze.
In St. Charles County, you need to do that. I think it's.
Too late.
Oh, sorry. I'll do it for next year.
Well, in St. Louis County, we can't even apply yet, so you got to wait.
Franklin County too, yeah. So you guys-
Ma'am back there? Yes.
I don't have the internet. So when I use the computer, I go to the library and use the computer. Is that safe, or what kind of precautions can I do to, I don't set up any kind of account or anything like that. I do use my phone, and I'm wary about using my phone because I don't know what safeguards are on my phone. But since I don't have the internet at home and I don't use a computer at home, what are my options? And safeguarding my phone also.
Well, I wouldn't do it in an internet cafe or a coffee shop, but in
The
a
only place I
library.
use is the library.
In a library,
And I use
they
their
have.
computers, I don't use their internet, I use their computers.
Okay, well, you don't even use you use your phone for a hotspot?
I do use the hotspot, no, I don't use my phone for a hotspot, but I, use my phone, I connect it to the internet when I'm at the library.
Oh, okay. Well, the library usually has a lockdown system, so there's usually a passcode. If you work on the library's computers, they usually have a thing that tells you, that won't let you save your passcode on the library system. My guess is they're pretty secure.
We're actually going to have somebody from the library here, one of the companies. I don't know what month it is, but yeah, we're going to have somebody.
But if your hotspot has password protected on your phone, that is a pretty decent security measure, and you can use your hotspot on your phone.
Now, someone advised me to do PayPal, or get an account like that through my bank. What do you know about PayPal? Are those secure?
Yeah. PayPal itself is perfectly fine. I probably wonder why somebody's asking you to pay them via PayPal.
Well, I guess, like, Facebook, Marketplace, people that are
Okay.
selling things,
Yeah.
but they don't want to write a check anymore, they
Yeah.
don't.
So basically, PayPal is, you have to set up an account with them, and then you have to link your either debit card or your bank account number to PayPal. That's all safe as long as you protect your password. And it is okay to send somebody money via PayPal. As what they'll do is they'll give you their PayPal credentials, uses an email address, but just make sure you know who you're paying, okay, and what you're paying for. What you don't want to do on a situation like this is use the newer payment apps like Venmo or Cash App or Zelle, because those are basically non-refundable. That's like sending a wire transfer. PayPal is basically just using your existing bank account. It's like sending an ACH is what it's doing, okay?
Okay, so PayPal, you feel is.
PayPal is fine. I would not use Venmo, Cash App, or Zelle, or any of these new payment apps, because that's basically like giving somebody cash. You cannot get it back.
Yeah. I have to say, I do use Venmo. I do know, and I don't know about PayPal, but look at each one of these. Some of them have a refund provision, like you have to pay a little extra to use the refund provision. So I will tell you, my son just, he was looking for an apartment, and he's already heard about the scams with that, where people will ask him for a PayPal or Venmo or whatever account, and he's like, I only do it if it's the right kind of account. And I gotta tell you, I don't know the answers.
Yeah.
But it's a different level of
Yeah.
the account where you can get the money back if there's,
Yeah, these other, Venmo, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, they're all legitimate, but they're like, it's like a wire transfer. Once you send it, you can't get it back. So if you like, a good example of a scam in this world is somebody online says, I'm gonna sell you Super Bowl tickets, and it's $2,000. And they'll say, I'll just Venmo me, and then I'll send the tickets to you. Well, once you Venmo, that money's gone. If they never send you the tickets, you're out of luck. Actually, in PayPal, you have a recourse to get that money back. In Venmo, you don't. So my recommendation to you all is, unless you kind of really understand how these payment apps work, I probably would stay away from them until you really understand the difference.
Linda?
On computer protection, McAfee, is it safe now to not have the firewalls and protection on your computer, or should you always keep it on?
Turn your firewalls on.
Turn your firewalls on.
It's a simple thing to do. People are afraid about it. I was afraid to do it. My tech person turned my firewall on. He's like, it's no big deal.
With Spectrum, they have a firewall. Is that sufficient?
I would think it probably was
Well,
helpful.
what I would recommend, yes, and Spectrum's a legitimate company, and they are trying to help protect you. Personally, I'm still gonna have my own stuff. I'm gonna buy a antivirus package with a firewall. They come at all different price points. But I'm a protective person, so I'm gonna spend $50 or $60 a year to have that, and it's like insurance. Right? Now, if it was $500 a year, I might change my mind, but not for 50 or 60. I would also say, for those of you that are a little bit computer literate, if you would use a virtual private network or VPN on your home computer and on your phone, that will encrypt your information and it gives you more protection. If you're not real computer literate, just ignore what I just said. But I actually had this question come up at one of these sessions. I was very surprised that about half the audience our age said, well, should I keep using my VPN? I'm like, hey, if you know what a VPN is and you can use it, yeah, keep using it.
And your firewalls are available on any laptop and systems that are there. Apple has it, Microsoft has it. What I was going to add to that was you can have layers of firewalls. I don't know, once you have a firewall, it encrypts your computer essentially. So that's your best tack. If you're using an actual computer, I would say, you definitely want that turned on, but the other option is to use like an iPad or something like that. And those, they don't have any encryption, and you can't really get past virus protection on those.
The tablets,
Yeah,
you don't have to worry
You don't
about.
have to worry about it,
Yeah, they're set up a little differently, and those software systems are not accessible.
Okay, and what is a good firewall, antivirus?
Well, I'm a $30 a month. I pay for someone to take care of it for me, because $30 a month, it's worth it.
We're not in the business of promoting products. I would just tell you, use a reputable name that maybe you've heard. And there's, you mentioned McAfee, there's Norton, there's other companies that, you can do a quick Google search, one of the top 5, and, any of those are gonna be fine.
My family members have been telling me it's not necessary to buy those, in the last few years, because
Well,
there's not much data.
What they're probably referring to is that any Microsoft computer now comes built in with its own version of a firewall and antivirus protection, and it's fine. So you probably would be okay. But again, I'm like, no, I'm gonna spend $50 and I'm gonna,
I've had for years.
Insecure
Yeah.
without it.
Cheryl?
I just have a quick question. I was a little confused. So if I'm originally going in to set up an account with Social Security, but then they're going to tell me to set up through login.gov, can I just go to login.gov in the first
If you
place?
do it now, you're going to go to they're going to refer you to login.gov.
Yeah, right.
Now everybody's going to go through that system, but if you had a previous one before, you're going to have to make that switch.
Okay.
Graciela?
I can't think of the name of the guy, but he does the commercials on TV that monitors all your credit and pay a subscription. Should we be doing that?
Yeah, so this is one where you're gonna get different answers. In fact, like even as of a few years ago, reputable firms like Consumer Reports were telling you, you don't really need. Again, I'm protective. I spend $10 a month and I buy it.
Is that like
No, I buy it. It's similar, but the one I buy actually lets me put my entire family, my adult kids on it. And so, and then it lets me set up to where if anytime anything happens where somebody's trying to open a credit account under any of us, it shoots emails and texts off to each of us individually. And so it also does a little bit of what they call dark web monitoring, where it's gonna, if you put in your social security number and your email address and your phone number, it's gonna continuously scan the so-called dark web where all the stuff is sold. And then if it finds a hit, it won't do anything, but it will at least inform you. To me, it was worth $10 a month.
What's the name of the system you use?
I can't give you product. Again, Google Identity Protection Services and reviews or something, and there's lots of companies that are reviewing all these products. And again, I think they're valuable because I want that instantaneous notice if anybody is trying to do anything with my credit.
And I'm kind of on the other end of that spectrum. I don't do that, but I do make sure that my kids and my husband's and my credit reports are locked. So
Yeah.
it just depends. How the other features they give
We
you.
used to call this at the bank defense in depth. So you had all these different things you're trying to do to protect yourself. And probably because I worked in the Federal Reserve, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have 10 layers, and nobody's gonna get it.
Before I don't know how much longer we have here, but I wanted just to make sure we talked briefly about what if this has already happened to you? Okay, so what if you hang up the phone, like, okay, I did something, and now I can, like, did I give them too much information? Did I say something I shouldn't have said? So, I think the one thing you need to know is that you're, first of all, not alone. You need to take a breath, not panic, but call somebody. Call someone and talk to someone who you trust and get some information about what it is that you can do at that point. Maybe that you need to go to your bank and you need to let them know that you gave your bank account information out. There could be, you may need to go to the police, but, don't just hide in that kind of, oh, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, I'm an adult, I should have taken care of this. Just tell someone and then move forward with what needs to get done. So,
And final comment, there's information on the table back there from our respective organizations if you want to do deep dives in some of this stuff.
Great. So thank you so much for coming today and sharing your expertise. Can we get a round of applause for them? The truth about Medicaid and VA benefits. We will have 2 different elder attorneys coming in to more deep dive into those specific programs and benefits. And you can sign up and back, and they do have information in there, like David and Cynthia said. And they'll stick around for a few minutes too if you have any further questions. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.